everyone. This is Pradeep from Sydney, welcoming you to the 14th episode of GCC Global Chapters and Connections, the global engagement platform of IIT Delhi, which is aiming to build a global platform where alumni from all over the world can connect with each other on a value driven basis. Once again, I bring to you today a fabulous set of alumni. We've got people from all different varieties and backgrounds. I don't want to steal the thunder, but at the same time, I do want to acknowledge Sunil Mishra. Today, we are going to be presenting to you the 1981 batch of IIT Delhi. Now, I hardly know anybody. Let me put everybody on mute, and anybody who's speaking can unmute himself. Just give me a second. Yep, muted all. So once again, I did not know, or I know very few people from 1981. And even if I know them by name without even realizing that they're from 1981. So, what did I do? I reached out to Sunil Mishra, who is part of our GCC. And what Sunil effectively did was he transferred his trust onto me. He knew his batchmates very well. And that's how we're having this session today, like we had so many sessions before. So, Sunil, thank you so much for getting together the batch of 1981. And I may also share with the group today that we are likely to have a second round of batch of 1981, just like we did for the batch of 1967, because GCC is exploding. And as we connect with more and more alumni also want to speak and share the journeys. So without further ado, please give a big welcome and a round of applause to Sunil Mishra. And I want to see everybody's hands clapping. Sunil did his BTech from IIT Delhi in 1991. Then he, like 50% of most of the batches at that time, he also ran away to US. What was he doing in the US and what has he been doing all this while? And also to introduce the lovely alumni from 1981 batch that we're going to be presenting today, it's over to Sunil.
Thank you, Pradeep. It's good to see so many of my friends. You did, by the way, you said 1991. I know I was a whaler, but it did not take me 15 years to complete. So anyway, yeah, my journey has been very simple, and I won't take too much time on myself here. We have much more distinguished batchmates here, which I want to give time to. But as you said, I, like most of us back in 81, which was, I would call the awkward teenage years of IIT, right? IIT Delhi has been around for 55 years. So 81 was the teenage year batch, and we were somewhat awkward. This was the era of the emergency, student unrest, first time using calculators, all that kind of good stuff, right? So in any case, I couldn't get a job in India, so I decided to come to US for my master's. Somehow figured out how to graduate and get a job at Bell Labs, but that didn't last very long either. So did a venture-based startup, which was an abysmal failure, but ended up selling it to Xerox anyway. So, good experience early in life doing a startup. Then did a stint with some large IT systems integrators, running global businesses, living in Europe, the US, etc. but did some exciting stuff. The only couple of things that jump out at me in terms of what I've done is, worked on the Mars Rover project for folks who are into space exploration and sort of in the news these days. So that was sort of fun. Worked on setting up the Department of Homeland Security here. That was a $1 billion project that I managed. So it was kind of fun. So, but enough about me. I now run IT services, mid-sized IT services digital consulting company. Focused purely on the mid-market, which I believe is underserved, and differentiated based on what I call a generative partnership with our clients. We're not a traditional vendor. Think of us as more client intimate than anybody else you would find. So differentiating based on our engagement model, and doing well. 30% growth every year on year for the last 10 years. All good stuff. But with that, I'd like to spend 2 seconds introducing my friends here. The 81 batch has been, at least we all think our batch was the greatest. So, but I do think it was the greatest. We have 8 distinguished alumni award winners in our batch. We have 3 directors of IIMs and IITs from our batch. We have countless CEOs. We have tremendous guys like Trilochan, who are doing a lot of work in terms of social equity and justice. We have fabulous entrepreneurs like Patu, who are not only, changing the sort of the industry in India as well as far as hospitality is concerned, but doing good at the same time, right? And then we have folks like Satish, who are, without whom I think the world would not get back to normal.
I'm running around with some,
Pradeep, can you mute yourself?
It's nice and cool out this morning. Yeah, absolutely. So this is.
Sunil, can you unmute yourself now?
Yeah. See, this is the typical IIT get together, right?
Absolutely.
We have to talk about each other. that's part of our, approach, right? Anyway, without further ado, I would like to get started with our friends here. What we are trying to do is get a cross section of our alumni and introduce at least our batch mates and introduce them to the rest of IIT alumni. We have tens of thousands of folks who went to IIT across the globe, and quite frankly, we don't do as good a job of engaging the alumni, compared to some of the the Harvards and the MITs of the world, right? And we need to get better at that. And so one of the things we would want to do is ask our panel members here how best we could do that as well, right? But going back, we do wanted to get a cross section, so we have, and we'll start with Patu. Patu is an old friend, old roommate of mine. I've known him for, 50 years almost. God damn it, I didn't realize we were that old, but great friend. Know his family well, and he is probably the most successful entrepreneur that we've had in IIT, and certainly in our batch, right? And we'll have him tell his story. Then we'll have Satish. Satish, stuck close to his knitting in the scientific world. Worked for Pfizer, now works at Moderna, and most of you, I know Moderna is not in India, but in other parts of the world who've gotten a jab, there's an equal likelihood that you got the Moderna jab. And quite frankly, based on the results I've seen, it's probably the most effective vaccine out there right now. And then we'll cap it off with Trilochan, who's a professor at IIM Bangalore right now. But in addition to all his credentials, he's done a phenomenal job of ramping up and helping the folks who essentially can't help themselves in many ways, right? And providing transparency certainly in the Indian context, right? So with that, Pradeep, I'll hand it back to you to start the
So thank you very much, Sunil. But before I go across to Patu, I have a couple of questions for you. And the first one is that when you sold your company to Xerox, then were you kind of floating in dollars after that?
Well, short answer is no. I got enough to take a vacation and maybe buy myself dinner, but it was a good, it was a good experience, and we all, in the global scheme of things, the fact that the technology we created probably still exists in many of the Xerox copiers was reward enough in some ways.
Okay, I'll take you up on that, but never mind. Now, the second question I have is that outsourcing, especially IT outsourcing, is a highly commoditized game at this particular point in time.
Mhm.
How are you achieving year on year 30% growth?
So it's a great question, Pradeep, right? Just in the US alone, there's 286,000 IT services companies. So it's a very crowded field, but it's a very large market. I mean, it's a $4 trillion market globally, right? Over $1.5 trillion in the US, but very fragmented. The way we differentiate ourselves, quite frankly, is the level of intimacy that we have with the clients. We hardly do any marketing; it's word of mouth. I talked about generative partnership as a model for how we engage with our clients, and that maybe it's dumb luck, but that's driving a lot of business for us.
So
And
did
more
I
important,
hear did I hear that you said that you have a high degree of intimacy with your clients?
yes.
I hope it is not a
That-
physical intimacy, but that's okay.
Well, I mean,
Jokes apart,
with professors from IIM, I shouldn't talk about marketing in theory, but the old, you can either be, efficient in your product production and pricing, or have a level of intimacy to drive engagement, right? And that's what we do. And we're focused primarily on the mid market, which the big guys really don't serve well. Right?
that's okay. I wanted to focus more on intimacy rather than all these mid markets and all that kind of a thing, but doesn't matter. Now, jokes apart, why I mentioned 1991, I was thinking that why did I say 1991 instead of 1981? Because I migrated to Australia in 1991, and I don't know why that stuck in my head. But look, what were you doing at? How do you pronounce that? Rensselaer, or what is that? I believe it is a quite a top college, because I know there's another IITian who's a provost over there. So, what were you
Yeah.
doing at Rensselaer?
So I got a master's degree in computer science and electrical engineering. It's a mini IIT, by the way. It's a small engineering college in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. It's the oldest engineering school in the US. Was formed in 1824, and really, what's the word we used to use in the old days? Full of magoos. I don't know how I how I managed to get there,
I'm
but
actually also surprised when I've been interacting with you, and I'm surprised that you actually did your PhD. But
no, I did not do PhD, just master's. That was enough.
but masters itself is quite a bit. So it was absolutely fabulous talking to you. And before I let you go, while you are part of GCC, what value proposition should GCC have to make it more attractive to the alumni, or
Yeah,
for that
I
matter,
think
IIT Delhi Alumni Association?
yeah, I think it's a very tricky one, and I don't know, somebody said it earlier in one of our sessions, because we have batches from 1966 to 2021, right? Everybody would want a slightly different thing from their current alumni. I mean, what we do have is the emotional connection, right? But I mean, two things. One is the alumni need to give back to the institute and the nation, number one. I mean, especially folks in our age bracket, and when we get to this point, that's our primary motive, right? Mentorship, helping others, doing what we can, and certainly doing that for our younger alumni, right? I think for folks who are graduating more recently, I think the IIT Delhi Alumni Association can help them network with each other, provide the kind of help and mentoring that they need, not only from other IITians, but across the board. We have a lot of connections. I mean, we have, I sort of joke about it. I'm sure everybody of you, most of you use LinkedIn. but I have like 10,000 connections. Half of them I don't even know, but I know at least if I ping them, I can get a response, right? And we can, and I certainly don't need that for myself, but we can help others make the connections needed, right? So, and really the sort of the community building aspect of it is what IITDA can do more of, right?
So I noted that you mentioned that we must have a give back to IIT Delhi as well as to the nation, but I did not hear you saying the society in general. But never mind, let's give a big round of applause to Sunil.
That's a given.
Thank you so much. And it was absolutely lovely to talk to you. Let's move across to the next alumni. And who's that? That is somebody called Patu. And Patu's surname is Keswani. And I was wondering whether this is Keswani or Keswani. Is there a H in between or not? But doesn't really matter. When Patu went to IIM Calcutta, after IIT Delhi, and the rest, as they say, is history. So what is this history? Please give a big round of applause to Patu. Patu, please unmute yourself, and we look forward to hearing about your journey post IIT Delhi.
Thank you. Thanks, Pradeep, Sunil. But I must apologize. It seems the electricity is going on and off, and therefore I might suddenly go dark, literally.
So let me ask you one question before, Patu, let me ask you one question before that. At IIT, were you a Fatru? Were you a studious guy, or were you a nobody?
I was Fatru, and if you were a Fatru, you welcomed the anonymity of being a nobody. You know, as you I'm sure know, and all of us, that there was nobody who was, the only guys who were known were the 10-pointers. And we had two of them. We had Ashish Khanna and HV Jagdish. But after that, I don't think, then everybody was either, you knew everybody in your hostel or your class, and there were groups where you hung out. And there were the guys who went to CERTs, and there were the guys who didn't go to CERTs. So it was like very clear distinctions.
So now tell us, what did you do after IIM Calcutta?
Coming to me, should I start?
Absolutely.
Okay, so 81 batch, I was in Nilgiri, and I still remember that the Rajma, the bhindi and the roti. Do you remember those, Sunil? The Rajma, the bhindi and the roti of IIT.
Hey, tandoori roti.
We used to call them the bulletproof rotis, right?
Yeah, those rotis were like frisbees. You could, in fact, some of them were made so aerodynamically, you could use them as frisbees. But anyway, so IIT was a dream run. Went through it, enjoyed myself. Then joined IIM Calcutta because I didn't know what to do. And then I joined the Tata Administrative Service, and I worked for 15 years with the Tata. So really, the interesting time I had in Tata's was when I was the executive assistant to a guy called Rusi Modi, who was an absolutely amazing leader, and he was the chairman of what was India's largest company then, Tata Steel. Then I worked here, there, went to Tata Tea, ended up in Taj, and my last 10 years, 1990 to 1990 to 2000, were with the Taj Group, where I hung out, enjoyed myself. So somewhere in the late 1990s, two friends of mine and I went out for a weekend with a few bottles of single malt, which were very rare to get then in India. So it was a big treat. And we were discussing what we wanted to do in our lives. And it turned out that all three of us wanted to retire at 40. And in those days, RBI, which is the Reserve Bank's bonds, were at 10.5% tax-free. So we reckoned if we had 5 crores each, we could retire at 40. I had very little time. They had a couple of years more than me and a couple of crores more than me. So suffice to say that I didn't achieve my target by the time I was 40, and they did. So I decided to leave Tata's and join a consulting firm called A.T. Kearney, which had just kind of started in India. And the only reason was I knew nothing about consulting, but they had promised me a very large salary and potentially a very large bonus, which would help me achieve this financial target. So basically, I worked for a couple of years there. Decided that I wanted an inflation hedge because RBI interest rates were starting to come down. And the only thing I knew then was how to build a mid-market hotel in India because there were no mid-market hotels in India. So I built up my first hotel in 2004, built a couple more. They did very well because, hotels are like a commodity cycle. In those days, there was a shortage of rooms and an excess of demand. So hotels were financially very successful. I raised some private equity capital, built more hotels, then raised some institutional capital and went public in 2018. And after that, I have been now wondering how to retire. So my desire to retire has not changed for the last 20 years. I'm 62 now. And the only way I can get off this roller coaster is either I sell the company or I, replace myself, which is what I'm looking at doing now. So that's my backdrop. I've had great fun in my life, a lot of learnings. I have been on the board of governors of IIT and seen how it works up front and been amazed at it, by the way. I'm amazed that it has produced so many brilliant people in spite of a system which actually is still very archaic. So, talking as an alumni, I have also spoken to them. Pradeep, you asked what can we do? I think the first problem is we have no database. We know nothing.
Absolutely.
And unless and until we build a database and then decide, have people like you giving their time, contributing their time to help build engagement, that is all good to do. But the first is the database.
I couldn't agree more with you, Patu. When I started looking at this and I asked the alumni office, they could only give me less than 1,000 names who are living overseas. I was shocked. So we were starting from ground zero. But that apart, but I'll come back to that question. But I want to ask you that this Lemon Tree Hotels, how did the word Lemon Tree come about?
See, when I was working with Tatas, we were looking at acquiring, in those days, Raffles Hotels, okay, which was later acquired by a large global chain. But the big discussion I still remember was that in the renaming, when you rebrand or rename, because Raffles also owned another brand called Swiss Hotels, they discovered that the cost of the rebranding exercise and the communication exercise would have been a few $1 million. And that was removed from the price of the deal. So I've built these hotels thinking that I would like to sell one day. And I didn't want to put a personal name. I said, I want to put an appropriately, well, obviously we had a brand architecture and a definition that this is what we want to stand for, but a name that could be exported to a new buyer with minimum cost. So it was a pure financial decision, let me tell you.
Okay. So now let's go fast forward 1 year. You have started Lemon Tree Hotels. How was the hotel doing in terms of profitability?
So as I said, it is a very cyclical business. So the reason we grew was serendipity, good timing. One is there were no mid-market hotels in India when I started. So in that sense, we were a category creator, number one. Number two is that we built them very cost effectively. That was the main focus, right? Not built like a 5-star with unlimited investments and so on. So to give you an answer, in the first 4 years, we put up 5 hotels. The average return on capital, not equity, capital was about 70%.
Wow.
Per year. So which is why after deploying just about 20 crores in 4 years, when we raised our first round of capital, it was at $200 million value, the company, which was ridiculous because the capital that had been deployed was only like 6 million.
So if I had known this, because I actually, by the way, I was in India at that time and I was just about to move from Bombay to Delhi and somebody had actually introduced me to Harshit Mehta. And I had no idea, and after I moved to Australia as to what happened, but I could have advised Harshit Mehta to rather than go invest in the stock market, would invest in Lemon Tree Hotels, But jokes apart, there's another thing that I want to ask you is that, you see, I read a lot about, you have given a strong focus to employing people with disabilities. So, what has been the driver for that?
Well, I think, like all of us, I come from a very solid middle class background. My dad was a railwayman, my mother was a doctor in the army, and they were very uncomfortable when my company became successful. It's very peculiar that if it was a small one or two hotels, they kind of looked the other way. But once it started getting reasonably successful and profitable, my father, before he passed away in 2009, in the last 2 years before that, used to tell me that, look, do what you can for the underprivileged in India. And so did my mother, who passed away a few years after that. So really, I started this employment of people initially with speech and hearing impairment, very, very much by very randomly. I just, it was like a thank you. So I told my colleagues that go and hire some guys who are deaf. I didn't even know that when you're deaf, you also become dumb. And I had a very interesting experience because a few months after this first few people joined, the mother of one of them came to see me, cried, and told me that just this job had changed his life, that, he was now able to get married, have normal kids. He was marrying a woman who was not speech and hearing impaired, and so on and so forth, which I found very inspiring, actually. So we decided to focus on somehow accessing this talent base, redefining jobs where all these disabilities will become irrelevant, and employing them. And even financially, it made sense, because I think what we discovered was that a lot of roles in hotels, because hotels are tiring jobs, low engagement, long hours, low salaries. People who have other options disappear very quickly. They just come and work in hotels like it's like a learning school. So people who come from physical or intellectual disabilities don't get any opportunities. And if you can give them opportunities, typically, of course, they move on when they get better opportunities, but they stay for longer. They are much more productive. And then when we started looking at other opportunity deprivations, which is not financial or physical, which is not physical or mental, we looked at financial and educational, because, a few 100 million people in India, angutha chaps, they sign with their thumbs. So we've hired about 500-600 of them, angutha chaps, and trained them. And basically the view is very simple, Pradeep. It is that educational illiteracy does not translate to functional illiteracy. That if you can have the proper training, then you can be functionally literate, even if you're educationally illiterate, specifically in low to mid-level skill jobs. And hotels are full of those jobs. So we have now over 1,000, I think, maybe even 2,000 people like that who are working with us, who are unemployable generally. But many of them, fortunately, now work with us and 2 years leave us at a much higher salary. So we keep replenishing. So in that sense, I see us also as some form of a skilling organization.
So it is this particular aspect of your personality which has impressed me the most, Success, yes, absolutely yes. That you did, well, and you built up such a huge empire and all that kind of stuff. Great stuff. But it is, that how you found an opportunity to look at, and not just from a social perspective, but also trying to enhance or really highlight the positive aspect of employing people with disabilities. So thank you very much for that. Now let me on a different tangent. There's a guy called Ashish Nanda from your batch. Now if I take the number of hours that he has spent in the classroom, and I take the number of hours that you spent in the classroom, and I divide them by 2, will that give an average of IIT Delhi, your batch?
Between me and who, sorry, you
A guy called Ashish Nanda from your batch. Who became the director of IIM Ahmedabad also, who was, I think, a topper or something like that from your batch.
Yeah.
So if I add the number of hours that you have spent in the classroom at IIT Delhi and the number of hours that he has spent in the classroom and divide them by 2, will that be the average for your batch?
It will be the median, because he will be at +2 sigma, I'll be at -2.
Love it.
No, I'm joking. But I attended the minimum classes required, because a lot of 25%, if I remember right, of our grades came from compulsory attendance. So in order to slink into a B grade, forget an A grade, you could not attend the minimum number of classes. So it was a very simple theory. What was the minimum effort required? Okay. But Ashish was brilliant also. And I think he enjoyed, enjoyed the learning, whereas I needed the minimum possible. So you can basically say I wanted to just coast through and he wanted to learn. So
on another front, at IIT Delhi, where would you spend most of your time? Was it playing bridge, or what was it? What was your area of interest?
So see, they say proficiency in bridge and snooker is a sign of a well misspent youth, right? And I can tell you I had a very, very misspent youth. So yes, I spent a lot of time in social activities and stuff like this. Not, by the way, it's not to say I did not study. I had to study, right? But I did the minimum possible studies and maximum possible other stuff. And when I look back on it, actually, I'm quite blank. I just know I had a blast. I had a bike, which I won in a card game. So, I used to bike around. I had lots of friends, girlfriends, and who I still, by the way, are still close friends of mine. So I had a blast in IIT. And I think what IIT taught me was it socialized me into adulthood.
So on a different tangent, was JMC having a better crowd, or was it LSR having a better crowd? At that
Miranda House, because the competition there was Hansraj guys, and so it was much easier to date a woman from Miranda House than JMC or LSR. And JNU. Sorry, JNU was the happy hunting ground.
Now, looking at OYO. OYO, I think, started off, although I'm not that very familiar. In fact, I was quite surprised when somebody, a couple of months back, when I really came to know what OYO was, But it seemed to have started off in the mid-market. Of course, that was a different model. Do you see OYO as a potential competitor to Lemon Tree?
See, OYO, by the way, so in India, if you talk, OYO is at the economy level. So think of it as 3 levels. Okay, first class, second class, third class railway. So we are second class. Taj or Oberoi is first class. OYO is trying to organize the third class, which is a very large but very fragmented and fundamentally poor in quality market. See, my parents were driven only by price in their purchase decisions. That was India. Lack of choice and only price. I was driven a little bit more by value for money. The new generation is driven by experience and is willing to look at value for money as, well, in my case, it was a key determinant. In their case, it is one of the key determinants, right? So OYO, where it operates, is for people who are only price conscious. But OYO's tech platform is very good. It has made a bunch of missteps along the way and got confused between whether it is a hotel company or a tech platform. It tried to morph into a hotel company, but fortunately, I believe they're getting out of that. OYO is competition from me only as much as, say, for me, the real competition of the future is anybody who commoditizes me from my customers. So if I think of commoditization, I think more not of a booking.com or a Make My Trip. I think of tomorrow a large platform like Google, Facebook, Amazon, bundling hotels into multiple other things, putting them as a part of their loyalty program and completely commoditizing me because they will own the customer. So therefore, from a 10-year perspective, I don't see these guys as competition. I only see these large platforms as the commoditizers for customer consumption worldwide.
Fabulous, fabulous. Patu, it has been an absolute delight, talking to you. And my last question to you is that what value proposition do you think, would attract you to GCC and IIT Delhi Alumni Association?
No, I have, when my father passed away, I set up a few scholarships in IIT for students. and I have, agreed to make a small building in my father's name, which is just started construction in IIT. So I'm trying to set up a research center there, and the base we have started building. I think we should all, I like what Sunil said earlier. See, if we have the database in place, each to their extent, see, we can contribute not only financially. I'm being a bit lazy and saying I'll contribute financially. Okay. We can all contribute in so many different ways in terms of enhancing the quality, like guest teaching, okay, mentorship, financial, outreach, helping people get jobs, even alumni posts. When suppose I am a alumni who's lost a job and I'm 40, can this association help in placement? So there are many possible parallel things we could do. I think it needs a lot of debate. I'm speaking completely off the top of my head. And I think financial contribution is not so important, personally. I mean, there are enough of us who can, I'm sure, financially contribute, but that's not the real value I would say we should look for.
Love, I wasn't aware that there's, you already getting a building coming up in IIT Delhi. No, man, I really love certain aspects. I love, the focus that you've given on to people with disabilities. I love that, the giving back. So I will pick up, and I have a follow-through call, later on, and then on picking up the theme in terms of the value proposition. But absolutely wonderful to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please give a wonderful round of applause to Patu.
Thank you.
Patu, any railway connections?
I keep meeting guys whose families were in the railways, and it's a very warm feeling. And it's funny that my mother was in the army, and I don't have that connect with the armed forces, but I do have with railways. And yes, there are people on and off I meet. But as I get older, I think my father's colleagues have all passed away. So it's their kids I'm on and off in touch with.
Because we are two of us, apart from you, who are from SP Marg in this group right now.
We should go there. We should go there to hang in the club. Where
I found Ramaswamy's son recently.
Really? I used to love the dosas there. Yeah, Ramaswamy.
Chalo, I'll take off from here. I'll contact you separately.
Please do.
Patu, I wanted to ask you, what is the role of dogs in your empire?
So, see, I have always loved dogs.
Okay.
And after I was married, my first dog, her name was Sparky. She was brought into the house by my son under very, very suspicious circumstances. I don't want to go there. But Sparky and I were very attached. And when I started my company, my first office was on a floor below my house, my sister's apartment, which I rented and converted into an office. And Sparky would walk down every morning with me sharp at 10 a.m., come to my office, spend the whole day, and I used to stay till 10, 9, late at night, and she would spend the whole day sitting opposite me in my desk. There were only 2 chairs there, she would occupy one. So Sparky, when my first private equity fund invested with me in 2006, I told them that Sparky would be vice chair dog, okay, because she always had an opinion, but a silent one.
Wow.
So then my son and my daughter also love animals. They said, why don't you help get some strays in? So every hotel we mandated should have at least 1 to 5 strays. And now I think we have 150 dogs we have 90 hotels. So yeah, we must be having about 200 dogs in the company. And each of them, in the first 50, when I had time, I used to name them personally. I called myself their grandparent. And it used to thrill me when they had kids. So, and I used to love the names. So I remember there was one day, one dog of ours had 7 pups. And we adopted them, and they were called Monday through Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So, this kind of random shit I used to love doing. I still enjoy it, but I don't have so much time now.
This is great. I wasn't aware of the dogs, but this is great.
So we are India's largest adopter of dogs. Largest.
Oh, nice.
So once again, a round of applause for Patu. And let's now go across to who? As they say, a man is known by the company he keeps. But in this case, it is literally the company that he works for. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome Satish from Boston, who is the Vice President for Drug Development with Moderna. As I wrote in my recent post, that yes, in terms of the financial attributes, Apple, Amazon, and Google are the top three brands in the world. But in the pandemic world, Astra, Pfizer, and Moderna are the three well known names all over the world. So let's have a chat with Satish, Dr. Satish Singh. Please give a big round of applause to Satish. Satish, where are you?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, Pradeep. I'm listening.
So
All
tell
right.
me, Satish, what did you do after you left IIT Delhi?
Yeah, I will. I guess, of course, talking to, although it's been multiple years since, of course, I met Sunil before, but haven't obviously talked to Patu in a long time. But I think there's something about the shared experience of those years at IIT that I don't think any of us will ever forget. However many experiences we have once we leave, and how many years have gone by. I mean, in our case, those are 5 years. So we had an extra year at IIT while, succeeding generations didn't. But, those shared experiences that have everything, from the classes themselves to the life around the hostel and to the food and to surge. And I think that's something that's very, very hard to describe, but I think it creates a bond that I think that's hard to break.
If I may interrupt you for a second, that you did something
Yeah.
amazing. You went to CERTS also and you studied also. Man.
Yeah, of course. The food, whatever, dinner was at 7, right? And then you had to get out and get paratha omelette at CERTS. I mean, that was had to be. We didn't have the canteen in those days, or I think it just got set up near the the later years of our stay. But yeah, I mean, Sunil and Patu can attest to the fact that CERTS was right there right next to Nilgiri, and all went there. Charpai on this side, the coffee chai maker on the other side. Yeah, so I think that shared experience can never be taken away. And I think when we talk to each other, we immediately recognize that part of our I shouldn't say childhood, but anyway, it's something that bonds us. That's a bond between us, and I think it's unshakable. Okay. So yeah, talking to Patu brought all of that back again. Hearing him and his experiences, and yeah. Okay, so for my own, it's starting from the end here. It's obviously, as you mentioned, Moderna has been in the news and has this great amount of limelight on it. It's a question of being in the right place at the right time. I mean, it's not it's not something you plan, right? I mean, I'll start now from the beginning. After IIT, I went to Kansas State University, did my master's and PhD there in chemical engineering. Nothing exceptional or so on. Just after that, chemical engineering, we're looking around for jobs. It was hard to find jobs, as a foreign student in the US. So I was looking around and up. Had a couple of postdoctoral positions, both within the US and outside. So I got a postdoctoral position in Sweden, at Uppsala University. And I said, well, this sounds more exciting, just because I've never been to Sweden before. So hey, why not take that position instead of, I had a position in Utah and another one at another university in Kansas. So I left the US in late 1987. I went and did a postdoc at Uppsala University in Sweden. And after a year's postdoc, I joined a small pharma company in in Sweden, Stockholm itself. And that company eventually got taken over by different companies. So I was there about 10 years, and eventually that company merged with a company in the US. So in that merger, I came back to the US in 1998, late 1997, 98. So moved to a city called Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's a small town, but so that was my second round back into the US. From there on, I lived there for 5 years, and then I moved to a company got taken over by Pfizer. So I actually worked for Pfizer also. So I moved to a city called St. Louis, where I'm sort of based. My family is still based there. So after I got tired of Pfizer after a while. Well, after a long while, actually. In 2016, I left Pfizer and joined a Swiss company called Lonza. A friend of mine was starting a new division, a new vertical in Lonza, so I joined him in Basel. So I lived for 2 years in Basel. But I used to commute back and forth between Basel and St. Louis. It got a little tiring, so I left company. I was recruited into Moderna. So that's when I joined late in 2018. I joined Moderna. Moderna was a small company then. It was not a startup. That is often something that it was an early stage biotech company, and they were just beginning to grow up and needed people who could address the drug product part of the company. So I joined there, and of course, late or early 2021 or 2020 is history, in the sense that we happened to be in the right place at the right time. I mean, so in short, since maybe March of last year has been something of a, I would say, obviously a high point in my career, in the sense that there's nothing that can prepare you for these things, but at the same time, the experience of all those years in the industry is sort of a preparation for when a demand like what was put on us last year comes across, right? It's not it was not something that came asking, but when it came, it was something that we had to rise up to. It was a company that I was telling, as I was saying yesterday, a company that had never made anything beyond a 10-liter batch of material. We scaled up. We put in enormous amounts of effort to come to stage when we applied for emergency use authorization near the end of the year. We were making batches of 1,000 liters like every other day. So I mean, this enormous amount of effort and that went in. Basically, normal life was put on hold. There was no normal life, and even now we're recruiting, and somebody asks us, "Can you talk about the work-life balance at Moderna?" And we sort of have to look sideways and think, where is this work-life balance?
So in your case, it is work balance.
There is no, and part of it was maybe facilitated by the fact that we based out of St. Louis. So my wife lives in St. Louis, and my kids were in St. Louis until recently. And I was in Boston, so I was by myself. And so
let me, on that particular one, let me ask you a question that you must have accumulated a lot of frequent flyer points, especially oscillating between Europe and St. Louis. So have you used up all those points, or they're still in your account at the moment?
I use some. They're still. I mean, mostly when I was going between Basel and the US. It's not so much now.
If you want any help in using up the points, I'm always there. But jokes apart, now the other thing is that you see, you had a choice to go down the academia path.
Yeah.
But instead, you went down the research or product development path in the industry. What was the driver for that?
Yeah, so I can maybe start again. So after I finished the postdoc, or when I did my postdoc in the Uppsala University, I had close connections to the university, and so I kept a leg in the academia, even though I joined the industry. I joined the industry because I wasn't really keen on trying to be a professor and apply for grants and so on. So that was fairly simple choice for me. But I did have an academic bent, so I kept a leg in the academia. I had being close to the university while I was employed at my first job. I mentored master's students. I have had a couple of PhD students also as co-mentored with a professor at the university. So I have kept an arm or a leg in the academic world, and have been able to always been interested in publishing and research. So I've been able to use the work that I've been doing in the industry and still use that as a basis for publications and so on, for where there is things that we do that are not.
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
that is the perfect spot to be in. I mean, in the sense you are kind of in between the industry and the interface, and kind of building up collaboration. I think that's a phenomenal thing. On another front, I also note that you tend to choose places which are very cold. You went to Basel, you went to Sweden,
Yeah, it
you went to
tended
Boston.
to be
Why?
the
Do you
north.
like snow, or what? What is the reason for that?
Yeah, I did enjoy. The first time, obviously, I saw snow was when I went to Kansas, so that was a whole different experience. But yes, we happened to have lived in colder northern regions. Just again, chance. I mean, I think back, and I think of all the experiences in a varied. I was, didn't have the entrepreneurial bent, but I've had the academic bent, and I've been able to use that. And hope to continue to through GCC continue to support that effort. Both and Patu mentioned there about mentoring and teaching and so on. And as I mentioned before yesterday, that is something that is of interest of mine. So yeah, I mean, that academic bent still sticks with me.
And that gets me to another question, is because you see, as you would also know that most people from the IIT our times batches tended to go either to US, or they ended to go for management either at the IIMs or in the US, and this included toppers also.
Yeah.
So why did you not have any interest in doing MBA?
I don't think. I mean, in those days, maybe one doesn't really know oneself as well. I think basically it was like I had no idea really about applying to the US. It was something that one did when one was there in the late fourth year and the fifth year. We just did that. That was part of the standard process in those days. Somewhat similar to what Sunil was talking about. There was an opportunity here and there. I remember I also had a job. I forget, BPCL at 800 rupees a month or some such thing. And then the opportunity came about to go to Kansas State. I had no idea where the heck Kansas was, and there was no Google or no such thing. So it was just part of it. I sort of think of it now in retrospect, sort of just, hey, it will be an adventure. Let's try it out. It wasn't really greatly thought out plan that I would do this and then I would do the next step and then I would do this next step. It was just hey, so sounds like an interesting adventure. Let's give it a shot. I mean, that was the same reason I left US when I got a postdoc from Sweden. I said, I had never been there. Let's give this a try. I have no idea, what life would be in Sweden, not knowing the language or anything. So, it's sort of maybe an accident.
No, but I love
question
it.
of an accidental tourist.
It is kind of symbolic of the typical inquisitive nature that we IITians have. That okay, let's kind of give it a try. Something is coming up. And to answer your question, a lot of people ask me later on that, why did you join IIT? Did you want to become an engineer? I said, what engineer? I didn't even know. I just sat
Right.
for exams, and wherever I got in, I just joined, End of the
Exactly.
day.
I mean, I think so. Yeah, there may be people who have, really planned this out, but in many of us cases, I know at least when our gang, there was people who were just there because they happened to make it, right? I don't know, Patu, Sunil can comment on that. We just landed up there, had a good time, took the next step and took the next step, and hopefully we did good, even as we were, taking these somewhat, unplanned steps. Preparing ourselves for when a chance comes, and that's the way I look at it. I had all these experiences that enabled me to make this effort when there was an incredible demand put on us over the last year. So I'm thankful for the experiences and for for some of the random nature of the things that we ended up doing. But hey, I think it's all for the good.
So it has been absolutely delightful to talk to you. And the last question is what you briefly mentioned in terms of the value proposition, or what would you like to see this platform that we are building jointly together? What would you like this to? What kind of a value proposition?
Yeah, I think it was sort of very well expressed also by Patu there and Sunil that, I mean, we are at least 1981 batch and a number of us are obviously at a point in our lives, in our careers, where we have the ability and the resources and the wherewithal and the experience and the gray hair to give back. And the platform can serve that purpose to provide those opportunities. Again, I said I have, that academic bent, so I'm interested in teaching and mentoring. And as I mentioned yesterday, I've been to visited pharma companies in India. I've been to Biocon and I've been to Lupin and a couple of others, and I've talked to senior management there, and I realized that at least from my perspective, there is a abysmal teaching of the biotech part of biotech technology is abysmal in India, even though we have a fairly good industry, but it is. So there are places where I would like to have an impact, and I think many of us have our own niche areas or our own expertise that we can give back to. So I think that is certainly something that is of interest, and this can be facilitated by these platforms where you bring people together as for mentorship, for recruitment, for teaching.
Thank you so much, Satish. Absolutely wonderful to talk to you. And I'll pick up the threads once again after this. I'll have another follow-through call in a couple of days later on. But ladies and gentlemen, please give a wonderful round of applause to Satish.
I want to add something, if I may. Pradeep, I have one or two questions. Satish, I'm amazingly impressed, by the way, by what you've done. And, being a researcher.
The same, mutual. It's mutual. Yeah.
No, right. But come on, we are both Nilgiri, so we have to be. But jokes aside, two quick questions. One, you said something very interesting, which is your attitude, which is, you would go and discover, is actually also an attitude of a researcher. Because you go where nobody else has gone and you try and, discover a new molecule or whatever.
Exactly.
Now just explain to me or to all of us, how did Moderna create this vaccine?
Yeah, I can.
And what was your role in it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in discussion comes up. So it's a very good question to explain. So Moderna as a company when I joined in 2018, has been around for maybe eight or it was founded in 2010. So it's actually not a new company. It was a startup in 2010. It had grown. It was an early stage, what we call an early stage farm biotech when I joined. They were just getting ready to think about their first vaccine to go into what is called phase 3 or critical, the phase 3 clinical trials. There's the phase 1 trials, which is sort of safety. Phase 2 is getting an idea of what the dose will be. And phase 3 is sort of the definitive clinical trials that allows them to say, yes, we have efficacy in a large population. So they were just beginning to think of phase 3 trials would start, maybe they will start in 2023, and then we would potentially launch this product in 2025. I mean, that was the vision when I joined the company, and that's why they needed somebody with late stage product experience, and that's when I joined them 2018. But the basic point was that the technology in the platform had been built. They had been building that platform from 2010 onwards. So when the ask came for the COVID vaccine, they could pivot very quickly because they already had the platform. They knew how to make the vaccine. They knew it was just a question of retooling to make this vaccine as opposed to the other one that we were intending to. The importance of the mRNA or the messenger RNA platform is that once they know the sequence, so when the Chinese published the sequence of the virus on January 11th or something, they published the sequence, the genomic sequence. Our people could take that sequence and design the vaccine. It's designed by a computer algorithm. They could design the vaccine in a few days. I mean, there's nothing, that is a tool that is well established. And then again, our platform was established so we could pivot and make the vaccine in so we had material for clinical trials available in a month or so after the sequence was published. So again, it is not because we suddenly discovered how to make vaccines, but because the company had been working on this for 10 years or 8 years at that point in time. So they could use that knowledge to very rapidly pivot to this thing. Then the question of scaling up came, and this is where the U.S. government put its bet on multiple technologies. I mean, they had the foresight to put their bets on 5, 6, I believe, remind me, 6 or 7 companies, different technologies, and gave a lot of money and provided a lot of resources to fast track the efforts. So a lot of, we had daily, basically the US Army helped us to move things around. I mean, I remember there was a big piece of equipment that had to be installed in one of the sites, and although I was not directly involved, the US Army came in and they cleared the roads, they enabled things to happen. So a lot of things were enabled by the effort to support the rapid development of the vaccine, clearing, enabling. We went to the top of the queue in terms of getting supplies of raw materials or supplies of componentry. So there was a concerted effort that was put in, and that obviously helped us because as a company by itself, we did not have the resources to be able to do this on our own. So so my own effort had to do with getting the drug product aspect of it. And this is where, I had a small group. We were, obviously thinking our first thing was in 2023. We never thought that we would be challenged to put this all together within 6 months, get stuff into the clinic and so on. So it was, that's I said, it was the experience from all those years behind me that enabled us to pull out all the stops and make this happen. It was, and it has been an incredible journey. I mean, it's not over yet, but at least the panic part is over, and we have a lot of experience. But there was not. I mean, we were there, and there was nothing else but to do. Do the best you could, and all you could. And as I said, normal life was put on hold. There was no normal life at that point. We were all driven. We were all highly motivated. It's I mean, it maybe sounds like a cliche, but at that point we were on a mission to save the world, right? I mean, there is, it's not often one, whether it sounds
absolutely
ponderous
right.
or not.
It was at that point in time, or even now, it is still about saving the world.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And how often does one get a chance to be in a position like that? I mean, it goes back perhaps to that, the spirit of just jump in where you don't know. In this case, I knew what we were doing, but it was a question of putting out that experience and putting in the effort, because there was nothing else. There was no other motivation.
But
I mean,
Satish, there
I
must
still
have
get,
been a lot of
yeah.
pressure also on you. I mean,
Yes, of
the
course.
whole
I mean,
company.
this is a question of no doubt. I mean, there was pressure. There was, it's very hard to describe. This is there's technical challenges being, issues arising all the time. We are scaling up. We are bringing new sites on board. We have to get multiple components together, make it happen. Right? I mean, this is obviously it was not just me. I mean, there was an enormous effort put in by everybody, all the way to make this happen. But it came together. It was certainly helped by the financial and the logistical and the project support that was provided by the Army and various government institutions. But the point is that they put some money into it, and it did pay out. And I think that's yeah.
Really, I must say hats off to you, because sitting in Australia, I've often watched in the news, reading about reports of, Trump jumping up and down and saying, when is the vaccine coming? And, it was like literally saving the world. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it does sound a little, ponderous to say it, and I don't often say it, but in my heart, I do believe it. It sounds a little, I'm trying to find the right word, but anyway, presumptuous or whatever. But it's an opportunity that came, and I'm glad I was able to help.
Fabulous. So, Patu, any more questions? Otherwise, then, once again, a big round of applause for Satish.
Thank you, guys.
And I'll have a follow-through call with you, Satish. This has been absolutely wonderful. And
thank you.
Now we go to yet another stalwart hero. He has taken a totally different journey altogether. Whereas Patu has been blazing trails in the corporate sector, as well as, in give back. Satish has been blazing trails in literally saving the world. Now, this third gentleman that I'm going to present to you has been doing a lot to, how should I put it, to get some sanity into the country in India. And I'm delighted to present to you Trilochan Sastry. He's possibly one of the best known people, maybe not by name, he must be, but I live in Australia, so I'm not that familiar, but by what he's been doing. And what a background he has. He from IIT Delhi, he went to IIM Ahmedabad, and he thought that's not enough, so he went off to MIT, then did his PhD, and then came back to India, and then, it's been an all-round social entrepreneur. Let's please give a big round of applause to Trilochan. Trilochan, where are you? Trilochan, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself, Trilochan. No, you're still on mute. Let me.
Trilochan, you're on mute, yeah.
I am unable to unmute you. You will have to unmute yourself, Trilochan. Let me mute all, and then you can try and unmute. Now please try and unmute, Trilochan.
I think he needs to relog in, Pradeep. Might be having some problem, initialization problem.
Yeah.
हो गया.
Yeah, you unmuted now.
Yeah, I have managed to unmute. Sorry about that.
Man, if
Yes, sir. Pradeep, what is yours?
this is exactly what happens. You see, when somebody is trying to change the world, very often it is the small things like muting, unmuting, which can make all the difference. But jokes apart, Trilochan, over to you. Tell us, what did you do? When did you go to MIT? Did you do your IIMA immediately after IIT? And was it immediately after IIMA that you went to MIT, or what's the story?
The story is literally blundering around, not knowing what to do with oneself. So I went to IIM because I got in, not because I wanted to study management. And after that, I was wondering what to do again. So I said, let's go to the US. So I was lucky I got into MIT because I am told only gold medalists get in there. But I was not a gold medalist or anything like that. So I spent 5 years at MIT after a gap between IIM and going to the US. So by the time you finish, you again wonder what to do. So, if I have to put it in very simple terms, it was really not knowing what to do with oneself, frankly. So it was just coasting along. And then I decided to come back to India for a variety of reasons. Then I said I must do something in the social sector. So that's a short, brief thing about.
No, but here a question comes that what made you decide to go for the social sector?
I mean, if I see, I don't have the gift of the gab that Patu has. Patu and I used to hang around, and he was a bigger fatru than me, but I was not far behind him. So he had the gift of the gab. Basically, it's high energy and low ambition. I had no ambition to make money or become a big shot or anything. There was no ambition to achieve anything, but I had young and reasonably healthy, and I had to do something with my life. And I used to feel very strongly from childhood, like what Patu said, his parents had told. My parents didn't indoctrinate me, that we should do something for the less fortunate. This was sort of a big problem, which I still have. I haven't got over it. So I don't know, some people are like that. So I have no answer for that. And I have had the privilege of meeting several people like that. One of them, by the way, is an alumnus of IIT Delhi called Vijay Mahajan, whom Pradeep also knows. So they also got the bug. He was also working in the social sector. There is no answer for this. Why?
So tell me, you've got a lot of things that you've done. There is this, PIL. There is this RTI. There is this democracy reforms. There is this cooperative movements. Walk us through what are all these. Let's talk about how did you kind of get involved into this RTI and into democracy reforms and election watches and all that.
See, as I said, low ambition and high energy. I was very angry, I still am, with the state of affairs in the country. So I said, if I don't do something, I'll, go mad or something. Not exactly go mad, but I will become a bad human being. I have to do something constructive, challenge that energy. And we were faced with a situation that a former prime minister had been accused of corruption, and several chief ministers were in and out of jail, and scams were going on in the country. They're still going on. And the only thing that was changing is every 5 years, one more zero was added. Like Bofors was 64 crores. By the time it came to Lalu Prasad, it was 500 or 600 crores. And then it went to 10,000 crores and kept on increasing. I said, our country is not going to go forward if the people who are leading this country are such people. So what can we do? So it's a typical thing that you have no money, no resources, no influence, nothing. And what can you do? So I thought about it and I said that let's try to go to the Supreme Court and file what we call a PIL, public interest litigation. And we had to do, I didn't know much law, not that I know much law. You read the constitution, did some thinking, etc. And we said that as citizens, we have the right to know whom we are voting for, hopefully. And we went to the Supreme Court saying that candidates must declare their financial and criminal records. So we were very lucky because we won that case 3 times in the High Court of Delhi and in the Supreme Court. And after the government changed the law. We challenged that law as unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court struck down that law. So then now it's the law of the land. You can say that every candidate has declared his or her criminal record as they.
So you are behind that. I know about this particular law that people have to declare, and that now goes on to the record. Man, did you not get a lot of opposition from all these political parties?
Yes and no. You see, like any crazy idea, I talked to many people, including my friends, colleagues, and so on, and they all thought it is a stupid idea. And I talked to some well-known activists, including Mr. H.D. Shori, who's Arun Shori's father, who was alive at that time. They all thought that's a kind of a crazy idea. But later on, people felt that this was one of the most important legislation or the rulings from the Supreme Court. Opposition, what happens is that, no, the short answer is we did not, but nowadays we do. So the government is tightening the FCRA rules. They slap us a notice with saying that you are doing activities which do not qualify tax exemption. So please pay us back all the 15 crores of taxes that you have paid. So we do face occasional harassment, but so far we have survived. And I do get phone calls from politicians saying that please remove my name from the website because it shows that I have criminal records. We ignore all. We are under the watch of the Intelligence Bureau and whatever. The government is, of course, obviously going to keep an eye on the organization and people like me.
So on a different front, you see, you also the founder of Farmveda.
Yeah.
And what is that? Is that trying to get a cooperative movement among farmers? What exactly is that?
So, after I started ADR and it was moving along, I said the old childhood bug of doing something on poverty needs to be done. So I took 1 year off. I was returned from the US and I started roaming around the villages of India. That's what I was doing for 1 year. And I took three sort of, I won't say vows, but decisions. One is I will not talk to armchair experts and academics. Although I was an academic myself, because I did find academic insights on such issues particularly useful. And I will talk directly to people. So I used to actually go to the village. I still do. I'm going again tomorrow, for instance. I talk to the people and try to understand the situation from the ground. So people who are working on health, education, and all wonderful things, and I think they're all very wonderful. But there was a big gap, which was about economic development. Now, there are several ways of doing it, but I was pretty inspired by Dr. Kurian, who had changed India from a milk deficit country to the world's largest producer of milk, and literally brought crores of people to prosperity. So I said, why can't we do this in the non-dairy sector? And this is the situation we find in the villages. So we chose what we call rain-fed, drought-prone, poverty-stricken areas. They're still there where people migrate season after season. They come to the cities, sleep under the flyovers. If they're lucky, they get to drive a Ola or a Uber. If they're not so lucky, they work in dhabas and hotels and clean dishes, and so on and so forth. So this is because agriculture is not doing well. So we were inspired by what Korean did, and we started our work on the non-dairy sector. So that was the basic motivation. It continues to be the same motivation.
So what are the challenges that you come across as a social entrepreneur?
Actually, there are two aspects to the work. One is the actual work itself, working in the villages. I don't find any challenges there. The challenge is, and even in getting human resources, we find, in fact, just now my friend left me. He's a young chap from IIT Kanpur. I know that IIT Delhi is the best, but there are a few other IITs. He is a successful entrepreneur and he decided to join us full time. So I made him the CEO of Farmveda. The challenge is in actually raising resources and managing the external world. And, the people who support this work, some of them are outstanding. One of them is, anyway, whoever it is, I don't want to publicly name it. the challenge is in raising resources and managing the external world. And second challenge is in managing the huge amount of government regulations that we have. So we set up some processing unit in tribal Adilabad and in rural Andhra Pradesh, etc. There are 22 permissions you have to get. Water, electricity, weights and measures, income tax, registration of this, that, and the other. And you name it, you have to get. I've got that list somewhere. 22 permissions, and each one of those guys expect a bribe which we don't give. So these kind of problems are more challenging than working with the people. Working with the people is a joy. मजा आता है उसमें.
तो मुझे एक बात बताओ कि ये मतलब जैसे 22 permissions one has to take and everybody is expecting कि हाँ भाई थोड़ा there will be some money to flow through. So how do you manage that? Like,
I have a one-liner that if you're trying to do good to society, the most practical thing is to be idealistic. I still maintain that. So let me try to explain that. I don't go. I send the farmers. When the first time the junior engineer was asking for a bribe, I said, you guys go and tell him, not even our staff from the NGO. Tell them, bhai, humko bahar se paisa nahi mil raha hai free mein. And we are doing this because we don't believe in giving too much of charity. So we got the work done. So now it is a different ball game because we have 40,000 farmers.
wow.
In each district. Yeah, there are at least 40,000 farmers. We want to, if these problems were not there, maybe we would have been, I think we would have been about 10 times the size. But anyway, whatever it is. So the local powers that we have realized a couple of things. One is that this is too big to fight. So let us just follow. And anyway, these guys are not going to give bribe.
Love it.
It's a bit of a, no, see, the bribing is not a moral issue. It is more a strategic issue. In one of the districts, they said they had to give 30,000 rupees and without consulting me, they gave 30,000 rupees. So I went and talked to them. I said, look, it's your money and you can give 30,000 rupees. I have nothing against it. But the whole movement is based on trust. Now somebody will say कि साला 10,000 रुपए देके आया और 30,000 यहाँ से ले लिया. And you are supposed to be a leader of this cooperative. So let's not get into this. The basic trust that people have, the thousands of members, they have that this cooperative is working honestly and fairly, and my money will not be misused and siphoned off. So to maintain that trust, it is important that we don't indulge in all these activities. To me, it's a very practical thing, although one can take a moral view also.
But I'm surprised because you see, with a community of 40,000, I mean, to have that level of trust with all of these people, it's a big ask.
Actually, it is more of sociology and psychology than any big strategic thinking. See, Dr. Kurian said, and before he said that, I used to think, India mein ek dharm hai. There is a, dharm, I don't know, religion, whatever you call it. It's not religion. I shall cheat the government, I shall cheat the income tax department, I shall cheat the traffic police, I shall cheat everybody if I can, but I shall not cheat my neighbor. So in the villages, that is even stronger. So if we don't give a subsidy and don't give free money and people are asked to put their own money into the cooperative, which is what we insist on. I mean, there is a complicated financial model which we can discuss if there is time. Then they elect leaders whom they trust. Jo mera paisa kha ke nahi jaye. They are the best people. They know who are the trustworthy people in their own villages. So we have outstanding farmers who are actually managing this, and they are there because the people have selected them, and people have selected them because sabka paisa usme laga hai. That's the simple psychology. That thou should not eat thy padosi ka paise nahi lootna hai.
So, with so many things going around, how you are also the dean for IIM Bangalore and you are still teaching there over there. So how do you manage to keep sanity in that part of the world,
Well, I'm not as witty as Patu. I conserved all my energy by futtering around during my student days.
I want to protest about the fact. I want to protest about the fact that you have said I'm glib and witty. Lochi, you were always the dada, yaar.
Of course, we used to hang around. Come on, don't deny that.
No, of course we hung around.
Hey guys, it's very simple, right? We had to balance it. So Satish was the serious guy, Patu was the fatru, and Trilochan is in the middle. So that's why we got them.
No, I think Lochi was like me, yaar. He was he may now today claim he was not, but he was an equal fatru. Please.
Thank you for the certificate, Patu. I really
of course.
So, as jokes apart, I think we have a limited amount of energy to do work in our life. And if you spend all of it preparing for the JEE and studying for the exam and studying for various things, then you have lost a lot of the energy. So I conserved it.
So now in terms of...
Look at Patu. He said he was working from 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the night. Catch him working for 12 hours when he was in
The question is, what do you call work? I thought playing bridge and snooker was a lot of outcome-oriented work.
No, I think, Pradeep, more seriously, if you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't seem like work.
That is true. I agree with you.
And that's life balance.
I think Patu's mentorship with Rusi Modi made all the difference, guys. All of you.
True. Rusi never worked. That was the brilliance of his leadership.
So now coming back to Trilochan, now the thing is that what value proposition would you want, or do you think that GCC or IIT Delhi Alumni Association should have?
It is very, you're a good leader and a very hard-working person, Pradeep ji. It's nice that you're asking, but you guys have figured it out, and two people have already answered. And I have nothing much to add, but I will say one thing. If I know that many people may or may not relate to it. No, I will say one thing about IIT and one thing about the global value. I had the privilege or misfortune of studying at MIT. And I looked at my fellow students. To be honest, some of them were very, very, very smart. Not all of them are from India. But I found that on average, the IIT guys were equally good compared to the chaps at MIT. I said, why can't we build an MIT in India? In fact, I almost started working on that. Then I gave up because the social work calling was strong. I think we should sell a vision that the IITs start becoming like MIT and among the world's very best. And it's possible. And I can talk to you offline how to do that. It's not going to be easy. The Chinese government made a statement some 10, 15 years ago that we'll have some 5 universities in the top 20 in the world, and boy, they are there. I mean, they've got already 3 of them in the top 20, and we are still ranking. We have not set our vision high, whereas we have all the human talent and capability, and the young smart people are today coming into IIT. They're probably smarter than people like me. I mean, so that is one vision I would like to sell, and I would really love to engage with GCC on that, because of this something that we are very this thing. Second, moving away from IIT, the other thing is that I'll just give you an example. I again had the misfortune of going to IIM Ahmedabad. I mean, my friend like Satish Maheshwari also went to IIM, so my apologies for saying misfortune. But the group came together and they started something called IIM Pact. Just an example, I'm not saying we have to do that. And they are actually educating lakhs of girl children. So it needs some people who are coming together, raising resources, providing the leadership and management skills, and making it happen. And it is quite independent of the Mother Institute. So there is a IIT group, which in fact I've just started engaging with. They've taken up 6 national missions. And one of the missions that we are working with them is the old-fashioned thing like water. So drought, suicide, farmer suicide, crop failures, these are things which you are familiar with. So they have cleaned up 11,000 water tanks in Maharashtra and brought 11 districts out of drought. Now we are trying to replicate that in Andhra. I happen to come from Andhra Pradesh, by the way. You might wonder why I'm talking about Andhra. So we should set our goals high. We have got all the talent and experience and everything together. Pick 2-3 big national causes and make IIT Delhi into an MIT. I would say let's dream big and I'm willing to do whatever little I can do. I don't have money like Patu, and I don't have the scientific and leadership and management skills Satish has. But believe me, I'll be able to contribute a little bit to that. So that is my.
Absolutely fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Trilochan.
No, Pradeep, one more. I have a, we are South Indian Brahmins and we beg our, Bhavati Bhikshamdehi. So I have an appeal to our group. ADR is now scraping the bottom because we are not having funds. So we need to raise funds. So please send in $50, $100, $500, whatever you can, and it will help us to tide over this situation because it cannot be self-sustaining. We are talking about democracy. We've got the biggest website perhaps in the world. We have the largest database of politicians in the world, and we need to keep it going, and we need funds. So.
And you're absolutely right, you see, because we have.
And I think we are working on a national cause. So, it's very much in mind.
No, but that's a very valid point, you see, because Trilochan, you see, we have alumni from 1966 batch to 2021. And especially the alumni from 60s, 70s, and early 80s are all looking at, give back, whether it is in the form of, the society or whether it is to the institute or whether it is to the country kind of a thing. And at the same time, there are very wonderful work which is happening. So that is what we need to enable and to make sure. Absolutely, I will be delighted to, there are a lot of instances like this, and let's kind of.
I'll be even more delighted if paise dila do humko thode se.
So let's have a chat. Let's have a chat after this, and let's see how to kind of take this forward, because I think this is great work that you're doing.
Pradeep, sorry to interrupt, but at the simplest level, I posted the website of ADR, ndr.org. I mean, it's very simple. You can just go there, click on donate and donate money.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Even this group can do that.
Very good.
Thank you so much for.
And let's make a subgroup within GCC to drive this activity also. Because we had last one of weeks back we had Sanjay Seth also.
I must also acknowledge that my old now out of touch Fatru partner Patu Keswani helped us quite a bit in our farmers work. So thank you, Patu, for going that extra mile.
Every time you take my name, I quiver with anticipation and fear.
There are some things that Patu says which cannot be said in public, so I will.
So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, please give a wonderful round of applause to Trilochan. And Trilochan, we will have this follow-through call, and let's see how best to take this forward. Because to my mind, this is just what a platform is supposed to be doing. Kind of, you've got people who want to contribute. There are people, causes which need money. This is just one of the things which the platform needs to do.
Now, before you sign off, can I just request that Sastry share the details where we can contribute for ADR?
Yeah, it is www.
ना उसमें ऐसे करते हैं कि हाँ I will distribute अभी भी देख लो chat में
अभी chat पे link डाल दे सुनील put the chat link.
I must say this has been really wonderful connecting with you guys. Seeing you after a long time.
We'll talk up.
I'm
in Hyderabad.
Take care, buddies.
So just one request, if people are funding, if you are not Indian citizens, then donate to the link which is for non-Indian citizens. And if you're an Indian citizen, donate to this, because the government, creates...
Yeah. One has been reading in the news about all this. I've read about that. Yeah, I know the kind of issues.
A simple thing is, if you're donating in foreign currency, go to that website, and if you're donating Indian currency, come to the Indian. Both the links are there on our website.
So I think on the lighter side, Trilochan, you might be the only guy on the Pegasus list. As far as amongst us.
Yeah. So please give a wonderful round of applause to Trilochan. And with that, I've handed back to Sunil to summarize today's session. Over to you, Sunil.
Thank you, Pradeep. Again, thanks a lot to Patu, Satish, and Trilochan. In the interest of time, I'm not going to babble on any longer. But just to remind everybody that we are going to have another IIT 81 alumni session in the future. There are lots of great, great colleagues and friends we have that can actually add a lot of value, right? So, again, Patu, Trilochan, Satish, really thanks guys for participating.
And thank you guys for bringing us together.
Yeah.
And I'll make a final plea to guys, open your checkbooks. Trilochan ko paisa do yaar. We have to make it happen, right?
I wholeheartedly agree and support this. I agree.
Actually, I want to thank Pradeep. I've been interacting with him. The amount of energy that he's bringing into this, I don't think we are acknowledging. It's not easy to do this week after week and talk to
time.
So I think we need to give a round of applause.
A big round
to Pradeep as well.
Folks, it is your energy level which motivates me. It is now 1:30 in the morning and my family will be shouting at me, but it is this energy which keeps me going. I'm what 4 years elder to all you guys, today's batch, but this I'm just loving it. So, guys, now a couple of action items, and I will have a call with all the speakers today, follow through, and as part of GCC, we need to kind of focus on driving or taking this forward. To my mind, these are very clear objectives, and that is what a platform should be doing. These are just some of the things which are emerging, and let's make that happen. So with that, this is Pradeep signing off from Sydney. At what time is it? 1:36 in the morning. And have a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, night, your morning tea, evening glass of wine, afternoon lassi, whatever it is in your part of the world. Till next time, take care and have fun.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.